All right. Well, for history's sake, I want to make sure to get into. I've just been confided in by somebody who felt very good because been feeling real powerful negative feelings, real powerful. Like really, it's like redesigning. Okay, so I've had to calculate. Okay, almost every shelving unit I've gotten is $150 or more. It's all this metal shelving, office type storage, that kind of thing. And so it really hit me. Like, I'm like, how did this take so long? Why has this been such this huge slog? Then I remembered, so much of my stuff was in just boxes because I had built-ins and other things that I just was able to tuck it away someplace that I didn't realize, like, oh no, I really had a lot of crap that, like, I had no way of really storing it. Like, I didn't have bins, really. I didn't have, it just, I was not prepared in many ways for, like, actually dealing with my stuff. And this is after I had gotten rid of quite a bit of stuff. And yeah, so it really hit me. I'm like, yeah, because I never explained this, people are probably thinking, like, why he never doesn't do the DJing thing anymore. And it's like, no, really, my space was so insane looking. There was no way I could, like, it was just too insane. And it's that point at which I actually have my physical space at, like, this point where I'm like, it's like, there's a absolute spot for sleeping, an absolute spot for working on something, computer setup, kind of space. And still I have to move. So now it's moving containers of the stuff and rearranging the stuff within the containers. And that's a nice, simple project, but it's also just as complicated. And so this has been very daunting. But it's also gotten this point where I'm like, really, going over a lot of things that I've gotten throughout my life, just thoughts about life, where I'm like, when did I get this thing? Why do I have these? Why do I hold on to this? There's a lot of that. This, why do I hold on to this? Even though, like, it's not even, wow, you don't see these much in this town. A dual prop. Look at that. You could feel it. You could feel it in the ground. You could feel the vibrations coming through time-space from it. Wah, 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 wah. That's amazing. I never really looked into what kind of weapons platforms they put on those, if they do. Because, I mean, yeah. Like, does it have the same kind of movement that if it had something like a Vulcan on it, like an Apache? Does it work the same way? Does it have that same kind of, like, I'd have to look into it. Because I just rarely ever, they don't move fast, so it also makes sense that's not what they would be for. But it's just something I've always thought about. Like, I'm like, you never really see those in, like, footage, of, like, that, like, wreck and shop. Whoa, oh, he spun out, yeah. That was pretty dope. That was a tight little circle right there. Well, actually, so I get confided in by one of the guys on the first floor that he's constantly having other people from the first floor try to break into his place. He just brings us up suddenly. And he's like, yeah, these guys, they try to do this, and then they just go back into their house. Like, it totally was hella normal and try to break into my fucking place. He's like, I keep telling the landlord. I told the police. He's like, I didn't do that. And the police just leave. And I'm just sitting there like, holy shit. And he's an older fellow that he would come across as somebody you could victimize. And then he like really gets into this whole thing of like, no, I kind of got this feeling that there's something that there's a widely understood way that housing that is real crap housing in Eugene has like this way that clientele and product move around on the street, and that the police kind of just don't give a shit because it would just be too much work to try to fuck with it. They would rather just catch somebody and just have an easy case to put them away, not something where they have to look into a bunch of ramshackle cattywampus joints all over the town, to put the case together. But he just basically got down to it that he's like, I'm afraid to walk to the grocery store. I live all of 3 blocks away from it. This is the grocery store on 18th for anyone who like wants to know. Like, this is the middle class South Eugene Safeway, and this guy's afraid as an older man who has to use a cane. He's afraid to walk those 3 blocks in Eugene, Oregon, so he takes his car everywhere. Good fucking work, Democrats. That's number 1. Number 2, the journalists. None of you really want to take seriously what kind of personality types become journalists, and then they represent your party. You guys fucked up. What you did is you set yourself up with the journalists, and journalists have this unfortunate problem of often being psychopaths. And they're vindictive. They actually kind of enjoy this idea that they could hurt people through smears. That's why Americans have always hated journalists. It isn't anything about literacy. It's that bad people are good at writing. That's why terrorists write and write and write and write about their movement. And they love writing about their movement so that you come away with pounds and pounds and pounds of paper, because terrorists love keeping track of everything they do. And because one day they'll be understood. And and it's pretty interesting. Once I learned a little bit about that, it was really good because it taught me a lot about villains, made me look out for myself and my mentality, like, does this sound like one day they'll understand, and like how terrorists keep records and they want everyone to understand one day. And so that's why YouTube was great, because I was like, I could keep track of how wrong I was about everything. So horribly wrong and deceived. So the journalists, though, they kind of are now not so much these people who are keeping the periodicals up to date with. No, it's become this they just smear, especially people who are right of center, moderate and right of center, which is mostly male voters, and the standard part of the culture that enjoys having fun, that enjoys spending its time and money and thoughts on enjoying life. They're going to stay where they live because it's easier that way, and they know people there, and any place can be improved over time, and usually does, so then there's fast life history. More and more and more, and I'm really glad Edward Dutton had somebody he had spoken to. I'm going to have to probably subscribe to him. I've got to start getting a budget for subscriptions to some people now, because I'm getting too curious about certain subjects. He actually found that yes, mixed people are much more likely to have fast life history. They are black and white, so black male, white female, mixed marriages. They almost are guaranteed to end up in divorce. It's white male, Asian female is the least amount of divorce, if I remember correctly. Yeah, so I started really rolling around this idea of the fast life history stuff, because it was one of these things that I still remember periods in my life where I was sitting there going, I just really want a normal life. But wherever my surroundings, what was normal? And that was actually something someone even said to me once. Well, what's normal? They too had come from a fast life history background in their environment. And so not necessarily bred for, but that's what it was, that was their environment. So it programs you slowly. And so I started really walking through this a lot. And so Dutton was going over this with Kamala Harris. This also applies in spades to Obama, who's a fast life history person. And that coming out of the modernists, like especially like the rock and roll scene, the blue-eyed soul scene, things like reggae ska, the Rude Boys and the Skinhead kind of thing. All of these, that's a key part of, there's always songs about fast life history in those genres. That's key to a lot of what they're about, is that. More formal music is the music of very mentally stable people. When you meet people who do extremely formal and classical music, you're kind of bored by them in a way. They're absolutely fascinating people. And when you're in the right state of mind, you can appreciate them in this regard. But you also find them also kind, a little boring. They're not like the people who are, starting a rock band that's about to start touring. That they're a party. They're a wild time. And maybe not crazy, but they're a wild time. So the Democratic Party didn't embrace people who want slow lives and a slow life pattern. They didn't embrace that, and this is a cultural thing. This is the only way I could put it too. You have to embrace it. You have to try to nurture and hold it close, and think like that's what we are. See, that's why, and people know that other ways that I can be found on the internet is under the name Turcopolie, this mixed race Turk-Greco type of appointment of fighting trainer for Templar units. And so these would be these people who would teach archery and swordsmanship and horsemanship to knight monks. And that was the idea. And weapons would be distributed, I believe, from them and the sword masters. And so this is the idea, is that there was things I understood about the left, and I'm like, you can't really contest them unless you understand what makes them tick, and therefore how to fight them. And it was also the way that I could go back over so much about my life and be like, it can't be like this for the kids anymore. It's got to change. My time has to end. People have to look back on my times and be like, why would people have done that? Why'd you guys do that to each other? So it was a different time, and that's the only way you could even explain it. It was a different time then. That's what I want. to be at a loss for words, to confront the youth and be at a loss for words. There's no explaining why we did that. That's a big part of this. That's a big part of what's going on with me in this YouTube channel. That's why I'm not like, yeah, I want to cash in, because I'm like, this isn't really entertaining. It's more for me to get over some things, and also because I was so upset that people were trying to rewrite history, and that they were trying to make wholesome, wonderful songs into these lurid, terrible things, that it was like, what are you talking about? That's not how people behaved back then. What the fuck are you talking about? And do you really think that, like, a Baby It's Cold Outside was about rape because of how common black men were raping women? I mean, like, really? Like, what is wrong with you? And so, and that was Democrats. That was you guys. You guys scared that up. That was the journalists writing about a song that they refused to understand the context in any way, shape, or form. And so, yeah, the Democrats, there's also a third one where you totally lost everybody. You totally fucked up, and you fucked up for good. And that is that you embraced the far left, and there's some weird pattern. I don't really understand it myself. All I know is it's very, very normal. That what you end up, it goes from the Bolsheviks, and then eventually the Bolsheviks and the NKVD are a threat to whoever the next big commie is. And I do mean that with all of its ethnic implications, because we see it here too. And so a certain aspect of the left is really aids and helps and abets, and those people, they trusted you. Let me just make it that simple. They trusted you. They thought after all this time, after all the work they had done, that they had opened up a whole new part of the culture. They had established firm grounding of the left in America, and you totally trampled on them. And you showed them also what the future would be for them if they were to obtain power. And now you just have to make a decision, because so many other people, Israel has made you all have to make a decision. You don't have any problems anymore. Now you've got to make a decision if you're on the left. Because Hamas told you violence is what we do on the left, and Israel has told you, and crushing your enemy, breaking their legs, breaking their arms, and blinding them, and leaving them for their comrades to find, will work. And that's, now you have no way back from that. So, and so good luck. I mean, really, because miracles, luck, whatever you want to call it, finger in the air, miracling. I mean, really, good luck. All right, well, it's time for me to vote. And what's going on here? Is there some kind of line? There's a drop box, right? Okay, anyway, later.